What's up, everybody? Welcome into DraftKings The Slate. We're happy to be here with you on a Friday, of course. Covered much in the Sports Thursday edition yesterday. We maybe won't go quite as round and round talking about everything. We're going to be heavy on football on this one. Adam Kaufman, Jeff Ulrich, Matt LaMarca taking you into the weekend. Of course, the main slate in the NFL, which is less than 48 hours away, which is always exciting. Guys, it's good to see you. I'll skip the pleasantries because I know you generally don't care. Let's start with last night, which this Thursday night game that we spent an exhaustive amount of time, Jeff, talking about in the show with Gary and yesterday. I feel like it was ultimately, it kind of like nothing we talked about played out. It was one of those really weird games where like nothing happened that we were previewing. I'm looking at, I'm on the DK Live app right now, which if anyone has not downloaded that, it's very helpful, very resourceful. Looking at some of the numbers from this game last night, and thank God it was a showdown and somebody had to win, because Algier, 3.3 points, was your leading producer among the running backs on the Falcon side, or as Jeff likes to say, the Falcons. Cordero Patterson, the highest price guy on the entire slate, 3 points, 5 for 18. Drake London ends up having a good game after we spent however much time talking about his irrelevance. Donta Foreman, as we were sitting there doubting him because Chuba Hubbard was active. Well, Foreman ends up going off with 22 points, and Hubbard has 1.4. He didn't have 2 points in the captain spot for people that put him there. PJ Walker, even though he got the win, was dreadful. Didn't even have 6 fantasy points. And your leading wide receiver on the Panthers side, not DJ Moore, he didn't even have 7. Laviska Shenault, who comes in with 15 points. Moose, what did you make of this thing in real time?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just a weird game. I mean, we talked about a number of different players that both teams just have like these weird skill set players. And I mean, I think I feel like I let Gary and talk me into it a little bit that the offenses are going to be good. Because my take on this game at the beginning of the week was that it was going to be just straight up basically what it was, that Atlanta was going to run the ball with like 4 different backs and we weren't going to see much passing. That's kind of what transpired. That is actually what transpired. But even like me, like I thought we'd at least get like Algier would have a good game or something like that, or like DJ Moore. Like there really wasn't anything of note for fantasy other than Donta Foreman, who, like you said, we ended up talking down all show because Hubbard was back. So yeah, man. I mean, I'm just glad that game's over. Like the Falcons are so annoying for fantasy purposes. They have Kyle Pitts and they use like their backup tight ends more than him. They have Patterson and Algier, and they get like, who the hell is Avery Williams anyways? Like, why is he getting carries? And then, the Panthers, I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, like PJ Walker is just such a up and downs. I'm just glad that one's gone. Like you said, thank God it was showdown. Very glad that game's not on the main slate. Let's just move on.
Oh, it would have wrecked so many people's lineups for anyone that committed to anybody in that game.
No, it wouldn't have, because nobody would have played anybody.
Yeah, no one would have played.
You would have seen like a couple people in there might have taken a flyer on Patterson, obviously.
Actually, yeah, Pitts. You know what? People always talk themselves into Kyle Pitts, so people would have had some Kyle Pitts. But other than that, LaMarcus is right. Most people would have just
Cordero Patterson was like 12,000 in the utility spot last night as part of a 4-headed committee. Like,
yeah,
I don't think you needed needed to be a mind reader to realize that he was not going to pay that salary off, getting less than 30% of the rushing attempts. I didn't watch this game. How about that for a little full disclosure? Okay, I watched the NBA. I watched Ocean's 11 on Netflix. Last day to watch, November 30th.
Oh wow.
Okay, all right, good to know. I mean, it's on the DVD shelf back here, so we're good forever, but go ahead.
And I have zero regrets about it. I have zero regrets. There will be plenty more football games. If I want to watch another crappy extra football game this week, I got one in Germany that I can watch, okay? I didn't need to watch this one.
Yeah, I mean, it really was just funny that like everyone we talked up, down, everyone we talked down, up. And I mean, thank God, Moose, I had a couple of lineups, captain and kickers, including Eddie Pinheiro, because I wanted to at least make some money last night. That was what it required. That was the kind of game it required. It was disgusting.
I think the craziest thing about that game is just that Atlanta is still basically very live to win that division. So it's just,
All
such a
the
weird
teams are alive.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Carolina's one back now. So, I mean, yeah,
True.
crazy.
Well, and we could talk about some futures and looking at some of the divisions and stuff like that in a little bit. But let's talk about this, not just the main slate, but Sunday. And Lamarca, you alluded to that game in Germany. You got Tom Brady's Buccaneers, very up and down, taking the Legion of Boom on, or at least they once were. Seattle, that game at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday Eastern time. So make sure you get up early and set those lineups, or do it the night before, whatever you want to do. But 2.5-point favorites, Brady's Bucks going into that one, and over under middle of the pack. It's 44.5 right now. Do you have Lamarca, any thoughts on this one, or do you think this is going to be just a disgusting game?
Yeah, I don't know about disgusting. I just probably will not be betting on it. I feel like Seattle has not gotten very much respect from the bookmakers of late. I thought the fact that they were underdogs last week against Arizona was weird. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. And they ended up winning that game pretty comfortably. But this is a clear step up in weight class. You always have that fear with Tampa Bay, like maybe this is the week that they flip the switch. So I don't know if I necessarily want to be betting on Seattle in this spot, getting less than a field goal, but I do think that's the side that I lean towards.
Moose, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, pretty much exactly echo the thoughts. This just is not a spot where I like, there's actually quite a few spots I like quite a bit this week, but this just is not one of them. So I'm not going to force it. If I'm taking anyone, I'm definitely taking the points. I mean, Seattle has shown us, like, Geno Smith is basically playing an elite level. I don't know if you want to call him an elite quarterback, but you can't deny what he's doing right now. It doesn't matter.
Number 2 quarterback in the league per Pro Football Focus.
Unbelievable.
He's great. Like he looks the part. Like it's not a fluke. I mean, it's really not. But to Lamarca's point, like, I worry about that too. Like, I mean, I've tried to hit the Bucks before, and is this the team that you really want to fade necessarily? You got a weird game now over in Germany. I would still take the points. If you're asking me, like, what side are you betting here? We're also to the point where we're almost getting 3 points on Seattle. At that point, I may even just sprinkle it just for a little, Saturday morning, just for me to at least be able to watch this game and for a reason to watch it. But yeah, it's not my favorite spot. Tampa's still got like a pretty solid rush defense. It's not what it was before, but if they do shut them down, Seattle's, Kenneth Walker a little bit, and Tampa Bay gets out to a lead, it's still a tough defense basically that you'd have to come back against if you're Geno Smith. So worries me a little bit, but I still think that Seattle is also just getting undervalued. I mean, I don't really know why they're underdogs at this point to the Buccaneers. It's a team who's got a couple good solid wins now. They've won at different spots. Metric wise, their defense has improved. Like, I think this game should be a pick 'em or closer to a pick 'em. Let's put it that way. And I think that Seattle is definitely the side, but there's a lot going on just with the travel and with the Bucks being a team that still has, I think, like enough elite tendencies that you don't necessarily go out of your way to fade them every week.
Daniel, our technical director, wants to know if he is an idiot for streaming the Seahawks DST in season long this week. How are we feeling about this?
I mean,
he's an idiot for playing in leagues with a defense.
Bucks O-line isn't good. I mean, there's probably worse spots. I mean, I don't know who else is available in Daniel's league, but I'd trust the Seattle. I'd much rather have the Seahawks defense than the Bucks. Yeah.
I'm just kidding, Daniel. I love you, baby.
He said he had to drop the Saints DST. I think I picked up the Saints DST to stream in a league or two, as a matter of fact. Jeff, you had mentioned, and this is not where you were going to go. I'm going to take it to a different place, and then we can go back to where you were going to go, which is, you said there are some different spots this weekend that you like. If you are, someone out there who, what is this, week 9 or whatever we're at in the NFL here?
10.
10. So we even
Double
better,
digits.
week 10. For people that are still alive in their survivor pools, looking at this weekend here, if you're removing teams that likely have been used by now, like obviously the Chiefs, the Bills, not that they're big favorites, and we'll get to that, but the Chiefs are big favorites, the Eagles are big favorites. If you're taking them out and you're kind of just looking at everybody else, who do you like? Like, who would you be comfortable going with that never mind the spread or whatever, you're just looking at and saying, yeah, they're going to win this weekend?
Yeah, fair question. I don't even really like the Chiefs. Like if I was in Survivor, I'd be fading the Chiefs this week. I think the Jags are very live in that game. Bills, obviously the Josh Allen stuff. I think the Giants are potentially ripe for an upset. Honestly, I would probably.
Yeah, I originally had the Giants and I backed away. I don't feel good about it.
I don't feel good about that spot. I would actually look
Niners?
No, I would go Dolphins. The Niners are probably fine too. I mean, they're obviously.
I would go Raiders if you can.
Really?
No Waller, no Renfro.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
care.
what I'm saying.
The other team has no coach, no hope.
You're just waiting to
crazy
embarrass
owner.
Jeff Saturday this weekend? Embarrass Saturday on a Sunday?
I mean, it's a set that's set up for him to fail. You got to come in and install like, what are they going to do? What like they're just going to run all the old stuff with a new coach, or are they going to try and put in a new, like, he's not even a coach. He's never coached. It's ridiculous.
Motivational speaker.
Didn't he coach a high school team?
As an event.
Who cares?
I don't mind the 49ers. I'd go 49ers or Dolphins. I just want
49ers
to do much like that game, like last night, or like I don't want nothing to do with this Colts Raiders game. I mean, I'm not. I mean, if you got the Colts at +6, I think that's fine. I mean, that was before some of those injuries popped up, but I don't want it at 4.5. And I'm not betting the Raiders because they're the Raiders. So
I'll be honest, even the Niners, and I know they're touchdown favorites. DraftKings Sportsbook, you're looking right at it. That's more than likely who I'm going to go with. It's who I have like penciled in right now. But I could understand why people would be scared off of that game. Even, you're looking at it, you're saying it's Sunday night, it's prime time, it's the only game on. People obviously are going to be paying attention. It's, there's no Keenan Allen on the other side, but like, who's to say Austin Eckler doesn't score 3 or 4 touchdowns? Like I don't know. The Chargers I realize they don't have the respect that they once did, but that's still just a team that sort of frightens me a little bit in the whole any given Sunday mentality.
I want to know what kind of survivor pool you're in that's still going.
That's right.
To answer that, it's one that rebooted because it already ended and everybody got knocked out.
I was going to say,
yeah.
Any leagues that are still going right now probably started with like, I don't know, 10,000 plus people or more.
Right. So. This is one that had to start again because this season has been so cruel to everybody. But Jeff, you were saying some spots that you do like this weekend. Where are they?
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the Jags a lot. I mean, the lines, the money, it's funny, like the money's coming in on where it was early in the week on Kansas City, but now the lines moved down to +9. I think that tells you something. We just saw Kansas City have a ton of trouble with Tennessee. A tough running team, a running offense that's averaging big yards per carry. Jags are like 6th in yards per carry on offense. And they've got a more competent quarterback. Like Trevor Lawrence, if you start to stack the line, he will burn you with Chris Kirk. I mean, I know he hasn't been good at closing out games, but he'll at least move the chains here. And we don't need them to win. We got 9 points. I think that the Chiefs are coming off a tough game. And the Jags are, like they said, they don't close games, but like, this team should have won their last 3 games. I know they did win their last game, but like the game against the Giants, they had a big lead and they just kind of blew it. And Trevor Lawrence kind of blew it. And the game before that, I can't even remember who they played, but it was basically a similar story as the Broncos over in London. They had a lead and they just did some silly stuff and let the Broncos back in it. But this isn't a team that's getting blown out. This is a competitive team with a really good rush offense. And I think that's kind of the kryptonite to the Chiefs right now. I still shocked that this line is 9. Like I get that the Chiefs at home, but I haven't even talked about the Chiefs covering at home as home favorites. They're like 10-14 since 2020. So give me the Jags here as my top play of the week. Again, I think they're live underdogs here, man.
LaMarca?
Yeah, I think Jeff makes a lot of good points. I will just add in that the Chiefs, after this week, they have to go play on the road in Los Angeles against the Chargers. So definitely a potential look ahead spot. That game next week has, like the potential to be almost for the AFC West Championship, depending on what happens with the Chargers this week. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity that we see like a C- type of performance from the Chiefs. I just don't, on principle, bet against teams like Chiefs with teams like the Jaguars.
We're talking about the Jaguars like that.
I felt that way until this year.
America's
what we've
team.
seen from the Jaguars this year, like they just messing people up week after week, and it's part of the reason that, like you were talking about before, why so many survivor pools, even the larger ones, have already ended. The Jaguars have regularly been a spoiler for people this year.
I mean, not the Jaguars have 3 wins there against the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Colts. Like, all right, calm down a little bit there, Colts, man.
Stand by it. I've seen it. I've watched it happen. Just watching the world burn.
Yeah,
Well,
the Colt upsets don't look as good anymore for the Jags. That's true.
No, I'll give you that much. All right. Well, 51.5, which quick scroll, if I'm not mistaken, is the high total for the week. It is. So 51.5 in that game. Is that going to be a game that you guys, when it comes to lineup building, we can get to props and all that, but when it comes to lineup building and chasing the $1 million on DraftKings, we got the $3.5 million fantasy football millionaire, $1 million to first tournament champion semifinal entry as well. Will that be a game, Lamarca, that you're going to chase some points, or are you looking elsewhere?
I do think it's an interesting game because Patrick Mahomes is expected to be very popular at quarterback, but none of his top pass catchers are really catching a ton of projected ownership. Like, there will be some Kelsey for sure, and maybe some Juju, but not nearly as much as some of the other pass catchers that we're going to see this week. And now you take Mecole Hardman out of the equation. There's a few extra snaps to go around for these different receivers that the Chiefs have. I think they're an interesting team to target. I do have some blowout concerns about this game. I'm not nearly as bullish as Jeff about the Jaguars being able to cover, but I do think that like, if you are going to stack the Chiefs, you want to get some Jaguars exposure, because that's the scenario that you need for this game to go 4 full quarters, right? You're going to need some Travis Etienne action or some Christian Kirk action, something like that, to keep this game competitive.
So those two guys that you just mentioned, and Jeff, I'm looking at projected ownership, which of course is going to change between now and Sunday. We know that, but the projected ownership as it stands right now, Dameon Pierce, obviously for Houston, is the most popular play with respect to about a quarter of lineups, but Etienne right behind him, he is second at about 22%. And then you scroll down the list a little bit, not too far, then you have Christian Kirk, who Lamarca mentioned, about 16.5% of lineups. So is it a kind of chase the chalk type of week here for you, Jeff?
I mean, it's always fine to eat a little bit of chalk. I mean, Pierce, I'm actually surprised he's coming up that much. So I wrote him up earlier in the week when I really thought people would be on the other side of this game. But yeah, you could definitely make an argument that, like, he's gotten to the point where if everyone's just going to pay down, I think it was last week when we were talking, we had so many options. There was like Stevenson. I think Eddie N was still under 7K. Yeah. And now we have it's basically just Dameon Pierce, and it's so concentrated. So when you get concentrated ownership like that, typically good to try and go off it. I mean, I like the spot for Pierce. I think Houston's live as well. I mean, Houston, to me, I mean, you look at what the Giants have done. Most of their wins have come by 5 points or less. I think only 2 of their wins have come by more than 5 points. And those wins have been 6-point wins and 9-point wins. I mean, for them to be getting 5 points to cover, what? No, I mean, it's too much. So I don't mind Pierce from that perspective. I think that he's got just as good a chance to dominate this game as Saquon Barkley. But yeah, for DFS, I almost think I'm probably just going to hedge it by being betting the Texans and then just maybe fading Pierce and DFS, because there's still a lot of running backs, in the 6K range, 5K range where you can play. Montgomery's in play. Jamal Williams probably in play this week. You can take a look at Jeff Wilson Jr., but I get why he's popular. I hate playing guys that everyone's going to kind of use there. And
Zeke is 6K too, if you're a believer there.
Sure. And I mean, it's just, it feels like a good spot just to pivot off of, because
those exist anymore.
Yeah.
Zeke believers.
There aren't many.
Jerry Jones, are you listening to this show?
Just Jerry Jones. Zeke believer.
Believer. What are those numbers? I mean, look, he's the last couple games he's played, he's given you 15, 18 points. That's all you're looking for. You'd be happy with that.
And just quick add on, I'd be more prone to eat the chalk with Travis Etienne than Pierce. I think it makes a lot of sense that Jacksonville's definitely going to try and do what Tennessee did. They're probably going to run even if they're behind a bit. And I mean,
game logs,
Etienne can get involved as a pass catcher too.
Absurd.
So
Yeah, his last three, he's been outrageous, and he's obviously getting a consistent carry as well, and getting into the end zone regularly, doing at least these last few since he's really emerged. But what about you, Lamarca?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously depends on the type of contest that you're playing in, right? If you're playing in a large field tournament, then yeah, I would probably not be looking to play Dameon Pierce. I do think he is the best per dollar option at the running back position, though. So for cash games, he's somebody that's going to be in my lineups. Jeff kind of hit the nail on the head. For the past few weeks, we have had a ton of players in this 6 to 6,500 range that all look really good. And this week, that range is just Dameon Pierce. So I think it's pretty easy to lock him in one of your two running back spots, save a little bit of money. Because it's a slate without as much value as we've seen in some recent weeks.
The most popular quarterback, other than Patrick Mahomes, it's awfully close, is Justin Fields, who once upon a time, I mean, we're not that many weeks removed from him being just a popular streaming option and nothing more than that in season long. And now all of a sudden, obviously, this guy's expected to get 22 to 26 points every single week, it feels like, and he blew up for 45, 46 last week. He's been hot over the last few in general. What's the outlook on him versus other quarterbacks, Lamarca?
Yeah, I like Fields. I'm not expecting a repeat of last week's performance, obviously. That was kind of, a little bit fluky. You're not going to average 12 yards a carry all the time, but it's another fantastic matchup, right? He's taking on Detroit. I know Detroit did a good job against Rodgers last week, but I think that's more a testament of the Packers offense being a disaster than Detroit's defense making any real improvements. So I like Fields. The rushing numbers are up. You look at his last 4 games, he's got at least 82 yards in 3 of them, 60 yards in all of them. And quarterbacks that run typically provide good fantasy value. So I'm expecting some regression from him, obviously, but I do think that, like you said, 22 points, 24 points, very reasonable in this spot.
Jeff, I'm looking at it. Mahomes projected to be owned in about 15.5, 16% of lineups. Fields is right behind him, percentage off. And then you have a bit of a dip before you get to Tua, who's sub 10. And obviously we know the weapons that he has with Hill and Waddle and what he's capable of. And then you get to like Daniel Jones, and it just really gets random from there. Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, right around 6% of lineups. So again, kind of like I asked you with the running backs, do you want one of those top 2 marquee guys just because you feel like the floor is so safe and the ceiling has the potential to be explosive? Or are you gonna, for differentiation's sake, bounce around a little bit and go cheaper?
Yeah. So, I mean, those 3 guys definitely feel like they have the best floor. Tua, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Fields. Probably you could rank Tua a little bit behind them. Obviously, he doesn't run like Fields and probably just isn't as elite as Mahomes, but he's attached to elite wide receivers. And I don't mind stacking Tua with Jalen Waddle this week just to be a little bit different as well. And maybe even leaving Tyreek Hill out. But those 3 dudes, I mean, that's where like a lot of the ownership's going to fall. I mean, Dak on the road at Green Bay, or people like Cousins on the road at Buffalo. These just aren't spots where people are going to get behind. It sounds really strange. And like, I'm not against the top 3 plays. I mean, again, like we're talking, like Lamarck was talking about different contests and different strategies. Cash game, probably just use Fields. They take the rushing upside. Don't worry about that. Everyone's going to use him. He's just an incredibly safe floor. I won't be shocked if he does what he did last week, because Detroit is terrible. And I also think that his passing upside maybe gets unlocked here as well, if the weather holds up. So nice, second week with Claypool, but I think that there's 2 veteran quarterbacks in Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers who, if you're playing for it all and you want to really go and catch a 2% stack against the field this week, I think both those guys are really interesting. We would have paid up 6,700 gladly for these guys in week 1.
Both 1-2% ownership too.
Yeah. And again, like just because you're playing them, it doesn't mean you don't think that they're done or you have to like them. It's just, look at what they're going up against. Who else is available? I mean, you could pair Aaron Rodgers with some really cheap options. Russell Wilson's got Greg Dulcich back, who I think is a great tight end to pair him with right now. He's got a great matchup. Tennessee's pretty just terrible at everything in terms of defending, especially against tight ends. And Rodgers is just Rodgers at home, man. I mean, we have seen him do this, come out of nowhere with like a 4-touchdown game. It's Dallas. If you can play some comebacks on the other side. So I bet like those are the two dudes I would look to be really contrarian this week. And I think with the ownership so stacked around 3 quarterbacks, and I think it's going to be very stacked, that you're just going to get really minuscule ownership on some of these guys. And Wilson and Rodgers kind of stand out as the dudes I would want to take a shot with.
Who's your pivot, Lamarca?
It's funny. Jeff makes a strong argument. Like those guys are as cheap as you will ever see them. And like my guy this week for tournaments is Jacoby Brissett. Like I'm going to play a $5,400 Jacoby Brissett when I could spend $400 more and get Aaron Rodgers. But I think that the Brissett spot just sets up perfectly for him, right? Like Miami has been a shootout team all season. They can't stop the pass, and they have a good enough offense to put points on the board. I think Cleveland has to go a little bit more pass heavy than usual in this spot. We've seen guys like Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones have some good games for the Browns in recent weeks. So I kind of like stacking that side and then running it back with a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle. You've got a really high total, a really low spread, like all good things that I look for when I'm considering quarterbacks.
Jeff had mentioned Dulcich, by the way, and he is at $3,400, which is like half the price of Travis Kelce, for instance, even a little bit less. Dulcich is the most popular play at tight end in terms of projected ownership, about 13% as compared to Kelce's 11%.
And just to finish that off, I mean, if he's one of the most popular tight ends this week, and like no one's playing Russ with him. I mean, if Dulcich goes off, like again, it's like 1 + 1 = 2. I mean, his quarterback is coming with him. So
you should never be playing a 20 to 25% owned Greg Dulcich in tournaments. You should never be doing
that. But if you do, Lamarca,
13%, not 20, 25.
Yeah, he's not 25.
There's a big difference.
I don't think he'll be 25% on you.
No.
And I'm sorry, what did you say, Kaufman?
13%.
I guess it depends on where you're using. Obviously, when Kaufman references his ownership projections, he's getting them from somewhere. When I reference my ownership projections, I'm getting them from somewhere else.
13 versus 25 is a hell of a gap, though.
I haven't projected in my my little tools here for about 22% ownership at the moment.
That's wild. I'll be curious to see what it looks like. I'm not saying it won't happen. I'll be curious to see what it looks like come Sunday. Speaking of Lamarca's bag, by the way, I can't believe I've waited so long into the show. How were the bets last week, and where do we stand now?
So we went 4-1 last week.
Oh my God. Tail the man, people. I feel like I need to scream it from a mountaintop.
Well, according to you, I'm having just an okay season.
Right.
So
the season continues.
Pedestrian. It's been a pedestrian year.
We improved we are 35-10 now for the year.
It's outrageous.
So I will say with a caveat, I don't love this week. And also the picks that I'm using, there is some line differentiation between what you're going to find in these contests and what is available on the sportsbook right now. So all, disclaimers out of the way, but my picks for this week, I'm taking the Steelers as home underdogs. I think TJ Watt coming back gives them a huge upgrade defensively. We've already seen them beat the Bengals with TJ Watt this season. The Saints are not as good as the Bengals. I am taking the Browns plus 3.5, kind of alluded to that with my Jacoby Brissett take. I think the Dolphins have reached the point where they are becoming overvalued, right? You hear a lot this week about is Tua an MVP candidate? The Dolphins haven't lost a game that Tua has started and finished. I don't care about that. The Dolphins are not an elite football team. So I think it's time to sell high on them. I'm taking the Vikings, but this is a one that you're not really going to be able to tail. I got them at plus 7.5 earlier in the week. They're at plus 4.5 in the pools contest that I write about. They're plus 3 now. I still think, by the way, you can grab plus 3 and then open up some hedge opportunities on Sunday, because I do not think Josh Allen is playing. You know, there was that video that was released today of him at practice. I think that was 100% a designed thing from the Bills to try and get the Vikings worried about him maybe playing in this game.
So you don't think he's going to be out there?
Correct. If he was healthy, he would have practiced. He wouldn't have just run out to practice and then run away. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think it's interesting because there are don't forget the conspiracy theorists that thought not even a week ago that the reason the Bills lost to the Jets, like he played poorly and so he blamed it on an injury and he wasn't really, and he's going to be fine this week and all that. You actually think there was something there, and they're going to. I'm just these are the internet conspiracy theorists.
I'm surprised his arm is still attached to his body. I never know how quarterbacks get hit like that when they're throwing and don't just lose an arm. So
it literally gets ripped off.
Yeah, I think that there's something there, in my opinion. I'm with Jeff on the Texans as underdogs. I like them. And my one favorite that I will be backing this week is going to be, sorry, I lost it. I had a favorite. The Rams.
You're our favorite, buddy.
I'm taking the Rams. Just historically, Sean McVay eats Cliff Kingsbury's lunch, shoves him in a locker. It's just a bully down. And
just the Rams in general, their record, it is pretty insane against the Cardinals. It's ridiculously good. It's pretty sick. So
we've got some quarterback stuff going on there. So watch for that. Obviously my opinion would change if Kyler is in for the Cardinals and Stafford is out for the Rams. But I think right now we're trending towards both guys being available. That would be my guess.
What is the biggest injury news that you guys are waiting on right now? Because at least as of now, there hasn't been some substantial, something.
I'd say Josh Allen is a pretty clear winner here, Kaufman.
Yeah, well, I guess other than Allen, because we just talked about him. How about that?
Yeah, the Arizona game is. I've had my eye on that one all week because I was hoping I could get sneaky and jump on Arizona because I really thought Kyler was going to be okay. But now it's actually almost turned where I think Kyler is almost more questionable. So that one's still big. I also think the Rams may have the better backup. Wolford isn't terrible. So, but it's really just Josh Allen. We got, I don't even know. Are you guys
picking the Vikings to win that game if Allen doesn't play?
I think that the Vikings right now are just this team of they remind me of the Rams last year. They're getting good draws. They're avoiding major injuries. They've got an elite wide receiver who is just going to kind of carry them at times. And I actually do. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see another shirtless Kirk Cousins video too, probably. On the,
we're
going to see another shirtless Adam Schefter video.
Oh God, that's just come on.
I will probably, depending on where this number gets to, right? Let's say the Bills rule out Josh Allen and Minnesota then becomes a 1 point favorite, something like that. I might hedge out of my position just because it's such a wide middle, right?
Yeah.
I have a 7.5 and a 1. That's 8 points basically where I can middle this game. If you have a smaller ticket on the Vikings, that's not really something that I would consider doing. So I think you grab the Vikings now and you ride it out, or you don't grab them at all. There's not a lot of hedge opportunity when they're available at +3 already.
The only other injury I was waiting for, and we got news on it, was Mecole Hardman, because it's kind of it's still a messy situation, but it's it's probably opened up opportunity to think about using
Kadarius Toney, baby,
or Kadarius Toney as a tournament play. But those guys are obviously hyper volatile. I don't know. Valdez-Scantling went from being he looked like he might be taking over to nothing.
Yeah.
And Kadarius Toney played 9 snaps last week. I know he caught a couple passes on those snaps, which is really encouraging, but I would lean Toney if you're going to use one of those guys. This is
probably the last chance you'll ever have to play Kadarius Toney. As soon as he plays more than 9 snaps in a game, You know he's headed right back to the injury report.
Yeah, he took,
Oh, I thought you said we're gonna say he's gonna be like 8K next week, but no, he's
No.
That's probably true too. Yeah.
I thought there was going to be like a Cinderella slipper joke or something. He turned back into a pumpkin. All right, well, we got to go because there's Sims on the way here on a Friday night. The Jets and the Steelers coming your way in like 2 minutes in Simland, so make sure you check it out. Enjoy all that is Madden 23. We certainly hope you do. Thanks to Eamon, thanks to Daniela, our and technical directors respectively, and of course Lamarca, scorching hot Matt Lamarca, tail the man's bets 35-10. Absurd. Moose, I'll see you at the movies later, pal. I'm Adam.
For the last 2 weeks. Thanks for mentioning.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not as good as 35
Put some respect on my man Jeff's name.
Yeah, come on, man.
All right. Although
has
Jeff
the
did
feed
give me
been
a golf
cut
pick
yet?
this week that was an absolute dog.